Yeah.
You're gonna go increasing height tonight? How is it? Decreasing. Increasing. Crescendo?
Well, that's
I'm not following you. Yeah, let's see, we're in the final 4+ weeks, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, which event you gonna go? You going like to downtown bar?
No, I'm going to be, I agreed to go to something else, I can't remember what it is, but, well, and the Goshen County thing got canceled.
Right, there's something else going on there. Steve's off for the summer, so I'm the only jerk who's working a full-time job while I'm trying to keep things.
How's your job?
It's okay.
You mentioned something about like, did you expand or absorb some of these responsibilities?
I used to be the department head for political science, and the public admin and public policy guy retired, so they gave me those as well.
Hopefully they.
No. Profit industry.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Howard. Hi, Steve. You guys are like me hanging out in the back row?
Curious.
Be waving at a lot of me.
I will make an effort. So next time we see you, no, don't worry. You got more. Curious.
Be waving at a lot of me.
Next time we see you.
I didn't need it again, so come back to just your mic.
Okay. This is now not on the right things. Yeah, I hear it now. Let me see.
Your mic.
Okay. This is now not on the right things. Okay, now I'm getting it. Yeah, I hear it now. Let me see. Phone display. Settings. You're good. I'm trying to figure out how to make this work.
I was chilly last night, so. You're in charge. You don't do it. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We'll do right, so.
Hey, we'll go right at 7, okay? I'll call you like right before, right?
Don't get distracted if I start drawing silly doodles and doing this kind of stuff when you're trying to talk. I play dirty poker.
Because it's radio, you can get away with that.
Yes,
Yeah,
Steve's here.
he's in the office.
So you guys all know.
Yep. We'll do it.
Like right in here. Okay.
Or just disagree.
And we're not on camera?
So
Okay.
the camera's right back there.
All right. I see it.
Oh. Yeah. Dang.
It's summer. But you know, we have a lot online, and that's the thing, that's, you can't see it, so, yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, with the Fremont League, we can't wait to see it. Can get thousands of people looking at a video, like for something, you know, forum that has some edge to it or something. Whoa. It's crazy, crazy.
Thanks, sir. You're welcome.
You're going to need to talk into the mic.
Okay.
Close to it, like more close than you want
Okay,
to.
sounds good.
And if anyone can't be heard, I'm going to interrupt you because I want you all to have good sound. Okay?
Sounds great.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
And you could set up one of the channels.
Okay, straddle that bad boy.
Yeah, I'm always checking to make sure I'm not going to bang my knee in this.
This thing is not.
Okay.
So quiet I could hear my ears ring.
It did just get really quiet.
We've got 10 seconds
That's a
here.
nice little sounder.
Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wyoming, I welcome our online and live audiences to this evening's candidate forum for the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. I am Michelle Scudero, a League board member and an active member of the Fremont County League and the Wyoming League. The League of Wyoming is pleased to host tonight's forum and 5 additional forums with our partners, Wyoming Public Media and WyoFile. Additionally, we thank our local partners, the Laramie League of Women Voters and Albany County Public Library, for their support of these forums. The League of Women Voters of Wyoming is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that is part of the National League of Women Voters, founded in 1920. The League believes citizens play a critical role in our democracy through informed, active participation in our government. The League is dedicated to voter education, promoting voter rights, and providing information that helps voters make informed decisions at the polls. The League does not support or endorse any candidate running for office. The League distributes unbiased voter information through the online voter guide vote411.org and creates opportunities like tonight's forum for voters to hear directly from the candidates and make their own informed decisions. Tonight's forum is being live streamed by Wyoming Public Media and recorded by the Albany County Public Library and will be available online after the forum on the Wyoming League, Wyoming Public Media, WyoFile, and Vote411 websites, and of course, at the Albany County Public Library's website and their YouTube channel. Thank you to our moderator, Melody Edwards of Wyoming Public Media. Melody is the host and producer of Wyoming Public Media's award-winning podcast, The Modern West. I encourage you to check it out and listen as Wyoming's peoples and landscapes come to life. Additionally, her civil discourse project, called I Respectfully Disagree, brought together people in the state, modeling how people find compromise to make change. Her reporting and storytelling have won a number of state and national awards. And I thank our panelists, Maggie Mullen of WyoFile and Jordan Uplinger of Wyoming Public Media. Maggie reports on state government politics. Before joining WyoFile in 2022, she spent 5 years at Wyoming Public Radio as a reporter. Jordan reports on state and government and politics for the Wyoming Public Media's social media audience. His videos contextualize what our lawmakers are up to as they regulate key and emerging industries and tech. With that, please welcome our moderator for tonight's forum, Melody Edwards, of Wyoming Public Media, who will introduce the guidelines and begin tonight's event.
Good
Good evening. My name is Melody Edwards of Wyoming Public Media, and I am serving as the forum moderator. The purpose of tonight's forum is to introduce you, the voter, to those candidates who hope to serve the public as the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Joining us tonight are the three Republican candidates, Chad Auer, Steve Harshman, and Tom Kelly. The two Democratic candidates, Anna Cordova and Sergio Maldonado, were unavailable to join this forum. Additionally, the Libertarian candidate, Ryan Schallenberger, is unopposed and therefore is not included in the primary election forum. One of these Republican candidates, the one with the most votes in the primary election, will move on to the general election in this statewide race. Tonight's questions have not been shared with the candidates in advance. The candidates are permitted to use notes. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to make an introductory statement. Following these instructions, we will ask questions. Each question will have a time limit of 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds for each response. Questions will be followed by the candidate's closing remarks for up to 1 minute. We will rotate who answers the question first. We ask that the candidates be respectful and courteous. As this is a forum and not a debate, please answer the questions for yourself, avoiding personal attacks on other candidates, and address your answers to the audience. Our timekeeper will advise you when 30 seconds remain and when time is up. I will stop you if you go over time. Please do not hesitate to ask me to repeat a question. Candidates, please turn off your phones. Candidates are not allowed to wear earbuds. Private recording of the forum is not allowed. Audience, in addition to silencing your cell phones, we would ask that you not clap or vocalize either your support or your displeasure with the information presented. First, we'd like to start with an introductory statement. Candidates, each of you has up to 1 minute. Mr. Auer, you are up first.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, my name is Chad Auer, and I am running for state superintendent. And I want you to hire me because I think you deserve a superintendent that will embrace the future with optimism and courage, and a superintendent that won't double down on policies that were perfectly crafted for the Carter administration. I think you deserve a superintendent that will prioritize our kids and preparing our kids for a rapidly changing world, not focus on things like birth certificates or Freedom Caucus talking points. I also think that you deserve a superintendent that has experience in K through 12 education, as well as traditional public education, as well as in alternative schools and charter schools and online schools, because the future of education is a wide, all-encompassing menu of options. I also think you deserve a superintendent that has experience inside and outside Wyoming, because there's a big world out there, and there's a lot of experience that's worth bringing to the state superintendent's office. Thank you.
Mr. Harshman, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the league for having us tonight. Thank you for all of you for being here, and all you folks who are online, and to the gentleman to my right and left. Appreciate everybody throwing their hat in the ring in this. My name is Steve Harshman, born and raised in Wyoming, born in Casper, raised in a little town in Midwest in the oil patch. I'm certainly the only candidate that's worked on oil rigs and a ranch in this race. I've been blessed to spend most of my life in Wyoming. I was gone for a little bit in education-wise, but my wife of 39 years, a lifelong educator. I've been a teacher and a coach for over 40 years now, most of that at Natrona County High School in Casper. 3 of my 4 kids have attended the University of Wyoming. I've spent most of my life, 24 years, in education policy in the legislature. As I served as speaker, served on school facilities, capital finance, all those things that are going to carry over to this job. So appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, it's your turn.
Thank you. My name is Tom Kelly. First, you've got a water bottle that's leaking a puddle right under you. So I'm sorry that takes from my time. I am a lifelong educator. I am somebody who was originally born and raised in the Chicago area, and then I spent some time in Colorado. And during those many years that I've been an educator, I've worked from 6th grade all the way to teaching graduate students who are looking to teach college themselves. I've been a public school teacher, I've been a private school teacher, I've been a university professor. I have also worked as a department head for a university that is 8 times the size of UW right now, and we're running the political science department. Currently, I'm the House District 30 representative serving on the Education Committee and the Recalibration Committee, and I have a wide range of experience working both as administrative in education and working as an educator with a variety of students, including being a special education teacher. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, candidates. Now for the first question. Again, each of you has up to 90 seconds to respond. Mr. Harshman, you're first.
The Superintendent of Public Instruction is the Chief Education Officer in Wyoming. What is your overarching goal in this office, and how do you plan to achieve it?
Okay, thank you for that question. As you read our Constitution, it says that it's a constitutional office. So, probably half of this job, 60% of it, is compliance related. It's the only of the 5 electeds that actually runs a state agency, right? The Department of Education, I think 117 employees. So that part, to build a strong team, and as I toured the 48 school districts this spring and was getting feedback from board members, parents, and superintendents and teachers on how we can improve and how we can provide really great customer service. And so that's part of that thing, is building a really strong team at the department to provide excellent service. So when a member of the public calls, somebody picks up the phone. When you email, it doesn't get bounced to, oh, I'm not in the office. Somebody will reply. And so I think I've been an expert in building teams and leading organizations my entire life. And so that'll be a piece of work. I appreciate the good folks who work there, some really skilled folks. The other key issues here, you serve on the State Land Board and the State Loan Investment Board. The State Board of Education as voting members, ex officio, University of Wyoming trustee, community colleges. Those are hugely important. And then finally, the tone at the top matters. As the leader of public education, what you say matters, and I'll lead us with real positivity and a great attitude as we move our state and our kids forward.
Mr. Kelly, it's your turn.
Thank you. This is primarily an administrative job as far as overseeing the Department of Education. One of the issues I've seen in education across the nation has been an over-reliance of top-down administration to attempt to mandate more success at the schools. What I would like to see is less regulation from the state, fewer rules, and the first step after getting to know my team would be to not walk, it's long enough to drive in Wyoming, would be to walk into each district and be able to talk not just with the school boards and the superintendents, but the teachers and the parents about what the state is doing that is making their jobs more difficult. I've already spoken to some boards and they said they sometimes feel like rubber stamps for the state. That's not okay. One elected official and a team of bureaucrats in Cheyenne cannot meet our kids where we need to in the different communities. So what I'd really like to do is move the state back into a supportive role, supportive of the teachers, supportive of the students, and supportive of the parents who feel like maybe they're being ignored by their local school boards. And let the districts innovate and let the districts lead on curriculum versus this top-down approach, which I'm very much averse to. Thank you.
Mr. Auer.
All right, thank you. Thank you. This is an important question because one of the things that I think you should think about as voters is that I'm the only candidate that's actually had experience managing the day-to-day operations of the Wyoming Department of Education. I think that's important because there's a lot of opinions about the Department of Education, but there's a lack of actual experience there in other candidates. I have 3 real clear priorities. As your state superintendent, I think we need to modernize our standards assessment and accountability system. Teachers should be free to spend more time teaching, less time administering outdated tests, and covering an ever-growing mountain of standards. I want to refocus our standards. I want to get rid of our antiquated assessment system, and I want to strike the word accountability, stop playing gotcha, and start supporting school districts. I have a long record of supporting school districts, being a thought partner, collaborative partner there. I'm going to continue to do that. I think we need to prepare kids for tomorrow's economy. Like I said before, the world's changing fast. The world that these kids are entering is going to require them to have knowledge and skills, be adaptable. Wyoming needs to lead and not follow when it comes to this. And the other thing I want to do is I want to build on our strengths while we're leading forward. I believe that we can stand on our strong Wyoming values and thoughtfully embrace the future. It's not an either-or proposition.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Kelly, you will go first.
The job of Superintendent of Public Instruction is complex. How will you balance local control with federal and state laws and parental rights with student education?
Sorry, go ahead.
First of all, federal and state laws, they must be implemented as effectively and as efficiently as we're required to do as the superintendent. Now, looking to balance local control with state mandates, that goes hand in hand with what I was saying before about paring back rules and regulations. I was somebody who opposed to the new literacy law, and some have said it's because I'm against literacy. Now, I was against the literacy law like I was against the Inflation Reduction Act, because I don't think it's going to do what they said it's going to do. The law was roughly 4 pages. The Department of Education just released 30 pages of rules for it. That's the wrong direction. So to balance local control, if the state moves into a supportive position and has less micromanaging, districts can then spend more time deciding what they do with their resources and their personnel versus having to check boxes for reports for the state.
Mr. Auer, it's your turn.
Yeah, local control is an echo. Local control is fundamental to the way we do things in Wyoming in the West. And I think that local control in education policy is critical. Our legislature in this past session kind of forgot about that. That recalibration bill, on one hand, gave teachers a much deserved boost in compensation, but it came at the expense of local control. And my view as your state superintendent, that's unacceptable, and I would advocate for reducing silos. Recalibration or any education policy should strengthen schools, not silo them. Local control, local communities, local educators and parents coming together, they should be empowered and they should be locally held accountable for making decisions that are in the best interest of their kids. That's an incredibly important element of what makes Wyoming's public education system strong. It's what will make it stronger in the future. And when we're thinking about a reduced or eliminated United States Department of Education, having a state superintendent that actually understands the flow of federal, state, and local education policy and the role that the state education agency plays in that flow is critical, now more than ever, because when Washington, D.C. diminishes, those responsibilities don't go away. They come to the states. We need to lead, not follow in Wyoming, and we can do that.
Mr. Hirschman, your turn.
Okay, thank you. Article 7, Section 11 of our Constitution talks about neither the legislature nor the superintendent can prescribe textbooks. And more broadly, that's been broadly ruled on by our court. It's really unique to Wyoming. Other states, the state board decides everything. Not in Wyoming. It's supposed to be the locally elected school boards. And I've always said this on the floor of the House for years. Legislators run and races and get 1,500 votes. And your local elected school boards will get 3, 4, or 5 times as many votes. They're there with the people to make those decisions. I served on recalibration in 2010, 15, 17 when we were flat broke and had a special recalibration, and 2020. And of course wasn't asked on this recent one. And what happened in that thing, I think, will be a lawyer fee bill. I think it will be in the courts again because it just simply took away local control. And as I toured our 48 school districts and listened to the local people, they're upset about it. and rightfully so. And so that's part of it. I think the federal piece, it's really not that much money in the grand scheme of things, about $120 million. Most of it's IDEA, some Perkins, there's some Head Start money and community college money, but I think we can deal with all that in Wyoming. I understand the budget, and we'll make all that work for us. But local control is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Auer, you're going to go first.
Okay.
The Wyoming State Board of Education establishes the essential skills, knowledge, and dispositions that every student should possess upon graduation. How would your office work with the state board to carry out your vision while also accomplishing the board's mandate?
Another great question, and it illustrates the complexity of the job of the Wyoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I enjoy working with our State Board of Education. I think that we have a very qualified and robust group that's doing that important work. And you'll remember that one of my top priorities that I mentioned before was revisiting our standards and assessment and accountability system. Well, that requires collaboration with our state board. It requires listening to their wisdom, listening to their input, they've done some amazing work. The profile of a graduate is something that Wyoming should be very proud of. It's a living, breathing document, which is important. We are constantly thinking about how to meet the needs of our kids. Wyoming deserves a superintendent that will work with our state board to help them meet their constitutional and statutory mandates and mission, but also a state superintendent that enjoys working with leaders from around the state, enjoys working through difficult, challenging tasks, policy questions, and arriving at collaborative solutions that actually work for kids, not just implementing the legislature's latest favorite thing.
Mr. Harshman.
Yeah, thank you. You know, as the state superintendent, you are a member of the state board. You're not just working with them, you're one of them. You're sitting at the table and you're actually a voting member. I know all the state board members. Many of them are local school board trustees. The current chairman is a school administrator I've known for decades. So I think to have a real impact on that, you got to attend the meetings, you got to work with people. Most of the work's done before you even get to the meetings, right? We know how that, and you got to do your homework. And I think the standards thing has gotten totally out of whack. You know, I served on the initial accountability committee when it was first brought to Wyoming, doubled them in 10 years. You know, my wife, a first grade teacher, 41 English language arts standards in first grade, just that, not counting science, math, others. And so we got to really take a look at that. The testing it's just more, and we've got to back that off because it's less teaching. And I would challenge, I would encourage all of you to get on the department's website, take the 4th grade white top reading test. No, I tell legislators do it, they won't do it. Most legislators don't have kids in school. Get on there and take the 4th grade reading test. After about 30 minutes, you'll quit. And imagine being a kid on an iPad doing that. And it's really unfortunate where we've come. I brought a bill to cut those standards in half. I'll work with the board. They know that as well. And we'll keep moving forward and cleaning this stuff up as we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, your turn.
Thank you. The state board reported at the last education meeting we had that they're currently working in the direction that we would like to go here anyway. That they had cut the standards down from 2,000 to only 1,000. We have an issue there. And there's also an issue, while the profile of a graduate is a great idea, there are unintended consequences sometimes. When we have standards, when we have ideals that sound good, but they're abstract in principle. And then when the rubber's supposed to meet the road, the districts say, great, we agree with this statement, but how exactly do we document this? How do we find evidence on this? And then we have an already overworked Department of Education scrambling to put rules together at this point, which overcomplicate the matter. Now we've got the Department of Education looking to make rules. We've got school districts and teachers trying to figure out exactly how to interpret rather vague standards and sometimes principles into actionable details. This is why I'd like to continue to work with the State Board of Education to further prioritize and extrude out the very basics of education for the state to provide and support that, and then leave more leeway for the districts to meet their kids where they're at, to do what they, and focus what they need to focus on.
Thank you, candidates. For this next question, Mr. Hirschman, you'll be up first.
In recent years, there's been an increase in interest in alternative schools, such as charter schools, private schools, and homeschooling. How will you ensure students from all types of education models meet the state's content and performance standards?
Yeah, great question. You know, as a lifelong educator, first of all, you know, we get in these arguments sometimes about what's the most precious resource in Wyoming, you know, is it coal, is it oil, is it water? And I always say, yeah, water is really important, but number one is our kids. And I'm going to support all of our kids, whether they're homeschool, private school, and all of our public schools do that. I've probably coached more homeschool kids than anybody in the state, all the state combined. They come to our school and participate, and so I don't want to start driving wedges between all that. But as the superintendent of public instruction, and we lead the nation in the number of kids who attend public schools. 93% of our kids attend public schools in Wyoming. We know, you know, going back to the founding of our country, a free public education. That's why we have, you know, still have 3.2 million acres of trust lands, because it's the foundation of our republic. We know to govern ourselves, to create good citizens, education for everyone, not just the rich, or not just those who, you know, could. That was George Washington's greatest regret. And so we're going to provide an outstanding world-class education for our kids so they can live the American dream and really contribute to our state and our society. And that's the whole goal, to keep moving us forward. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, your turn.
Thank you. State testing is still important. To dovetail what was going on with what I was saying with standards, the more standards we have, the more standards we have to test. And then we have YTOP testing that takes 9 hours, and you're really just testing a kid's attention span at this point, really not their proficiency in anything like that. So if we reduce what we're actually testing, we can reduce testing down to 1 to 2 hours per topic, reading and math. Then we have somewhat of a level playing field of seeing who's where. Now, one of the things I've noticed when I've talked to educators is the rise in popularity of charter schools. And these are publicly funded schools. I'm not talking private schools. And they get public school funding and they get ADM like the public schools do, but they don't have the same standards and rules by which they have to follow. There's been frustration in the districts on this, especially the districts that lose students and lose ADM to local charter schools, which they're competing with another public school. But this charter school has much more freedom. I don't think the thing to do at this point, I agree with Steve, we don't pit one side against another, because ultimately it's the kids we're looking to take care of. We're not looking to prioritize any type of school. We want to do whatever works at this point. But I think the thing to do at this point would be to loosen restrictions and give more freedom to our traditional public schools rather than tighten the noose on the popularity of charter schools at this point.
Mr. Auer.
All right, yeah, this is an important question, and I think Mr. Kelly brings up some good points. Bottom line for me is that I think that there is a bright line between public and non-public education. Our Constitution is clear about that. With public, on the public side of that line, there should be accountability, and taxpayers should understand and be, they have a right to understand that there's a return on the investment. Fundamentally, I think that two things are important. One thing, foundational. Parents are a child's primary educators, and number two, students deserve a diverse curricular instructional program. When, by virtue of the fact that I've worked with schools across the country, I know that there are some systems that have become entrenched and rigid and resist one or both of those fundamental options. And when that happens, when public school systems or any private school or whatever, when those systems become resistant to meaningful, thoughtful change, then reform is the only reasonable American option. So as your state superintendent, what I believe and what my job would be is to make traditional public schools the strongest option on that menu of diverse options. That's my job. I will work with school districts, educators, parents, local communities, legislators, the governor's office to implement policies that make Wyoming's public schools the strongest that they can be. That requires online, alternative, and charters as a part of that option, thoughtfully.
Thank you, candidates. For the following question, Mr. Kelly, you'll go first.
Wyoming has consistently ranked as a state with one of the highest youth suicide rates in the United States, which viscerally demonstrates the need for change. How can the superintendent's office take a leadership role in paving a new pathway to support youth in crisis and the need for supporting youth mental health and wellness across our state?
Thank you. The first thing to do is obviously to, again, effectively and efficiently implement the laws and the policies that we currently have at this point, to make sure the resources are going where they're intended to for the people who need them. But with any problem, whether it's stagnating proficiency or it's mental health concerns among the students, I get very wary of a one-size-fits-all policy from the state. So in addition to implementing as effectively as I can what we already have on the books, this calls for open communication in communities to hear where they're having issues, to hear what's worked for them and what hasn't. And I think the superintendent can do a good leadership job by getting communication among the districts to be able to share what has worked and what hasn't. Basically, innovation and improvement cannot be dictated from the top. When we have thousands of people working towards, they say, two minds is better than one, 4,000 is better than one. So communication, as when dealing with any of the worst issues that we have to deal with in the state, is paramount. To hear what the teachers are saying, hear what they're seeing, and hear what parents are seeing too at this point. I have, having worked in special education with students with severe behavior disorders, I have familiarity working closely with students who have attempted and survived. So I have a great understanding for this and a great compassion for it, but there's a stop sign.
Mr. Auer, your turn.
Super important question. In decades past, I think that it is probably reasonable, but we could debate that school districts were not in the mental health business, but today we have to be. Our kids deserve it, our communities demand it, and Wyoming's future relies on it. We have to, as your state superintendent, I will, and you should hold me accountable for this if you hire me, I will advocate for investing in mental health supports, not just for kids, but for staff and for the community at large. I will prioritize advocating for block grant funding that includes support for communities and local school districts to tackle this problem. But I'm also going to say this, is that this is another one of these silos. Mr. Harshman, you might want to write this down. I actually was a ranch hand in Montana. Maybe that doesn't count, but I learned this. Silos have a purpose in agriculture. They're not appropriate in education. We need to stop siloing. I can just envision a silo for mental health support. That's not the right direction. This is a collaborative effort, a community effort. It's a community problem, and it's a community concern. If we love our kids, we're going to pay attention to mental health issues.
Mr. Harshman.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when I first started teaching, and we were trained as teachers, boy, it was just, you never said that word. You never talked about suicide. because the fear was you would maybe give somebody the idea. And thank goodness that's all changed, and we've trained our educators now, and we know that, recognition, reporting of this, and then getting help. We know that makes a huge difference. I think we made huge strides in Wyoming. The 988 hotline, we're the last state to adopt that. I put it in trust funding, so that thing will be funded in perpetuity, even when oil goes down to $20 a barrel. And we have to cut the Department of Health. We'll still have 988 funding and suicide services. I sponsored a bill this last session. The Cody Youth for Justice kids sponsored it. They've been working this, trying to make sure that this is taught in all of our high schools. State Board has started to respond and put it in our standards. And so, but it's, and I'll say this, one of the things in this latest recalibration, one of the good things was more elementary counselors were provided. That's a good thing. And so that'll go on. And I think this partnerships with community. And I think in Wyoming, we've done a great job of this, and we're continuing. So thank goodness we've come from number 1 on that list now, and we're starting to move down. And hopefully we'll keep making progress on that. Because I tell you, I've gone to a lot of kids' funerals over the years. It's heartbreaking.
Thank you, candidates. For this question, Mr. Auer, you're going to go first.
Wyoming's voucher program provides up to $7,000 per child to reimburse private school tuition, charter school tuition, or homeschooling costs. It's been tied up in the courts, but applications are open. What impacts do you anticipate the voucher program having in our public schools, and how would you mitigate these impacts?
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly important question. It's something we're wrestling with as a state. How are we going to navigate innovation without violating the constitutional bright line between non-public and public schools? When I read the Constitution, and I'm wasting some time here, but it comes to Article 7, Section 8, it talks about it talks about that bright line. My reading of the Constitution says that our current Steamboat Scholarship Program has a constitutional problem, but I'm not a judge. I will respect, as an executive branch member, executive agency leadership person, I will respect what the courts and the law say. I will implement it, make sure that those dollars are accountable, that they're not used in fraudulent ways, and that they're actually going to be used as to better the education interests of kids. But like I said, I feel like there's a constitutional problem. I'm more optimistic, honestly, about the Trump scholarship account, the Freedom Scholarship account, because that allows people to take a tax credit, put money into scholarship granting organizations, and then those qualifying families can apply for those dollars, those scholarships, and they can be used in public schools or outside of public schools, but at least they don't put Wyoming in a constitutional crisis like the Steamboat Scholarship, in my opinion, does.
Mr. Harshman, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. And I spoke against this. I argued against it again at several articles in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 19, Article 3, Section 36, Article 7, Section 8. I printed them off here and got them here, and clearly prohibits the use of public funds for these type of activities, not under the control of the state. And there's one, except for the necessary support of the poor, right? And this goes to anybody. So the wealthiest folks in the state can get their $7,000 and move forward with that. I checked on the website on the Department of Ed last week. There's 445 approved providers. And the way I counted that was about 61 schools. So the rest of them are not schools. Most of them are out of state. It used to be on the website you could see where they're located. That's been removed. I can't see what state they're from. You have to investigate a little bit. We're paying an out-of-state company $400,000. Our Department of Ed, the people running the Department of Ed, are paying $400,000 to administer this of our taxpayer money. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. And so I think we can do better. That's not the Wyoming I was raised in and I raised my 4 kids in. And there's better ways to do this, and I think to focus on folks who really need it, we got to go back and start over on this. So thank you.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. First, if it's ruled unconstitutional, then the question's moved. The whole program goes away at this point. If it is ruled as constitutional, as happened in some states, where after a state court has overruled it, the United States Supreme Court has said it's de facto discrimination against religious schools at this point. So I don't know what's going to happen with it legally, because similar arguments have been made in other states and they've been ruled constitutional. Now, but the important question is, as superintendent, what we do at this point? Now, Steve and I didn't agree on the implementation or the enactment of this program, but we do agree currently what's going on with this long list of providers that we're not sure exactly who they are, and we might have a third party organization vetting them for us. I think that if we're going to be having state dollars going out to private providers to provide education for our kids, then the state has to have a much more active hand in determining these are valid and accountable educational providers at this point, not, Jeff's School of Modeling online or something like that. Accountability is paramount to this. One thing has to be clear, because sometimes this program has been mischaracterized. No one is sending a check to parents' houses for them to buy jet skis or go on vacation in Mexico or anything like that. The money's appropriated to the State Department of Education, and then it's appropriated to approved providers. The issue we have right now is, as Steve said, this really long list of providers that I'm not sure we know exactly who's doing what.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Harshman, you'll go first.
State lawmakers recently updated the formula for how the state funds are distributed to school districts. This formula included a pay raise for most teachers. What, if any, additional options should our state legislators pursue to attract and retain top teachers? What could the Office of Superintendent implement?
Good question, and you kind of pivoted that question away from recalibration, so I won't go into recalibration. There was some good things, though. The model was underfunded. We knew that. That's why there was a lawsuit. But you go back to 2016, 17, then COVID, when oil was actually negative. We didn't have any money. And so now that's kind of come back. Our investment income is incredible. But on teachers, first of all, pay does matter. Pay matters. But the number one motivator of all of us is appreciation. None of us like working for anybody or anywhere in any profession and having this chip going on. And I'll just tell you, I watched last week, and I've never got on the Facebook. I've stayed away as a legislator and a coach, and I've just stayed away. But now I am running this race. And there was a member of the state land board got on and said, our kids, our schools are teaching our kids to hate our country. Now, as a lifelong teacher, I didn't sleep very well that night. And so what you say as a superintendent, how you appreciate people, the mood you cast, the culture you build, the tone at the top is so important. Yeah, pay matters, but people want to be appreciated too. And that's the thing I'll bring to this and build a strong culture.
Mr. Kelly.
Sorry about that. I know the mics picked that up. We have to make teaching fun again. It's not just in this state. We're talking across the country. There is a shortage of teachers because of this top-down approach, because of this mandating success, because of all this pressure. Teachers are being asked to do more and more and more. And then when the top-down approach fails, they're the scapegoats. I've been a teacher. I can't stand it. Believe it or not, I run in some pretty conservative circles. And I speak bluntly to them, saying that you can't talk down the public school system. You may not like it, you may prefer homeschooling, you may prefer religious schools, but the fact of the matter is, even with a robust choice system, we will still have 9 out of 10 of our kids attending public schools. And they have to be as strong and as effective as possible. And the key to a great education, great educators. And if they don't like what they're doing, they will move on. We have to make sure that they're compensated fairly. Nobody goes into teaching to get rich. Steve and I both know this. Chad did it too. I had to leave public school teaching because I couldn't take care of my 6 kids on the salary. But we do this, and this is where I let my libertarian flag fly. Give teachers the free academic freedom to teach again. Let them innovate. Let them share what they've done rather than have to report back to the state what they're doing.
Mr. Auer.
Yeah, my approach to when it comes to teachers is this, is that teachers, when they're respected, they're going to choose Wyoming and they're going to stay in Wyoming. When they are fairly compensated, they're going to choose and stay in Wyoming. When they are adequately supported, they have the resources they need, they're going to choose and stay here. My travels around the state and my track record over the number of years, 2 decades plus, heavy on the plus, is clear. I believe in supporting educators. Educators are the backbone of our system. I think the biggest challenge facing Wyoming teachers today is feeling unseen, disrespected, and unsupported. They're asked to do more with less. They're blamed for everything that goes wrong. And I was, as you mentioned, I was a teacher myself, a mediocre one, I admit. But I know that that teaching is one of the hardest jobs. It's the hardest job I've ever had. And the vast majority of Wyoming's educators are awesome people. I've been able to travel around the state and work with them. Look, I support policies that respect teachers, that fairly compensate teachers and support teachers, including competitive salaries and other things, but I'll stop. Oh, I thought it said stop. I think that there are, one of the things we can do too is not just increase and have competitive salaries, but we need to support safe and orderly classrooms. We need to have high quality professional development, housing incentives, maybe loan forgiveness programs, targeted support for rural educators and rural communities, streamlined licensure programs, and then I will stop.
Thank you, candidates.
Ms. Chairman, we're going to switch times for now.
Okay. For the next question, Mr. Kelly, you go first.
Across Wyoming, the housing shortage is making it increasingly difficult for school districts to recruit and retain qualified teachers. As Superintendent of Public Instruction, what role do you believe your office should or could play in helping address this challenge? And what specific actions would you take?
Okay, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here about what legislative changes and what changes the state should do. I'm going to talk about what the Superintendent of Public Instruction does. And serving on the State Land and Investment Board, one of the challenges we see with housing comes down to infrastructure. So if the state can step in and help with providing roads and sewer and water so we can have private industry come in and meet the housing demand and relieve some of the pressure on the housing, that would make it easier. But within the purview of the superintendent, other than what's going on the SLIB, there's really, I don't see anything within the job of implementing the job of heading the Department of Education of speaking directly to housing. It's outside the purview of that position. So short answer, since I've got a second here, would be to support housing development in the different communities through the SLIB.
Mr. Auer, your turn.
Yeah, this is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle here because our teacher recruitment program is often stymied by the fact that we don't have enough affordable workforce housing in this state. As a former mayor who's presided over thousands of land use applications and understand my University of Wyoming law degree, I understand that quasi-judicial role that the SLIB board has. Mr. Kelly's right. There is some things we can do. We can help local communities. We can help those mayors and county commissioners and town boards with grants to help with infrastructure that helps with housing. But here's another thing, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and challenge Wyoming a little bit. On one hand, we lament the fact that that our kids are leaving our state at record numbers. But I think we also need to come to grips with the fact that we have, although well-intentioned, we have a regulatory scheme, the protest petition, the long land use processing procedures and delays. We have a system that really is anti-workforce housing. And we need to roll up our sleeves, have some hard conversations, and do some authentic reform if we're serious about providing housing for teachers, for law enforcement, for firefighters, for everybody in the workforce. Currently, our system right now is pushing thoughtful development outside of the state.
Mr. Harshman.
Thank you. I think really three things that this office can do. I think the first one hasn't been talked about yet, but as a member of the State Land Board, all of our communities have state sections parked right up close to the border of your city. We allow the State Land Board can lease those long-term leases, 70-plus year leases for housing. They could do that. And there's been a few instances where they have. So I think that's got to be a part of this, these long-term leases. The other piece, the SLIB board, working with, can get more money to, and I think we can use it as part of our investments, on part of our low return investments, to actually invest in WCDA bonds, Wyoming Community Development. When my wife and I bought our first home in Casper, it was WCDA financed. Probably most of us in this room did. And they're hurting for money. And so we can make that part of our investment. It's a public purpose investment to invest in ourselves. And then I think, as mentioned, the SLIB board, the State Loan Investment Board, infrastructure is a huge risk in housing. Curb, gutter, water, sewer is really important, and I've got a lot of experience in all three of these areas in my years, worked on all those, so we can make an impact, certainly.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Auer, you will go first.
Wyoming's top 5 statewide elected officials, which include the Superintendent of Public Instruction, are also tasked with managing school trust lands and investments to maximize revenue for the state through leasing. How will you weigh public opposition to leasing projects that come before the board while fulfilling your mandate of maximizing revenue for public schools and institutions?
Oh, that's easy. No, this is one of the great tensions, one of the things that attracts me to this job is because we have hard questions in front of us. Look, the stewardship of our state lands is mostly, well, if not entirely, the fiduciary responsibility is to benefit our public school system. We're also all in as a state on a commodity-driven economy. I point to Governor Friedenthal's book on this. It should be mandatory reading, although we can't prescribe curriculum. You're right, Mr. Harshman. I just would highly recommend it. But listen, we have tough decisions to make. How are we going to leverage our resources to benefit our schools? And particularly in an environment that wants to cut taxes to zero, we're going to need to, look, leadership requires more than platitudes. We need to steward our public lands in a way that benefits our schools. We need to balance short-term gains against our long-term stewardship and responsibility. And as a member of the SLIB board, when it comes to those hard things, I'll be boring, I'll be judicial, I'll be constitutional, and I'll make transparent decisions that you can hold me accountable for.
And Mr. Harshman, your turn.
Yeah, and actually, it won't be the SLIB board on this piece. It'll be the State Land Board, created in 1890 with our Constitution when we had 4.2 million acres of trust lands, some university trust lands, some prison trust lands. The majority of those 16 and 36 sections of each township, though, are public school trust lands. Some politicians have sold them off over the years. We now have laws preventing that. some states were worse than us, right? And everything really from the Ohio country over had school trust lands at one time. So we're still blessed by that. But the state land board piece, I think the first thing, I just lived through the Casper Mountain gravel pit. That's in my house district, 37. I heard about it when a backhoe showed up driving home on a Friday night on a legislative session. And so there was a change in the lease from grazing to mining, and that was put on the consent list. And the 5 electeds voted aye on a consent list. Well, that's the first red flag, right? And that's not going to happen. Absolutely. You have to follow the Constitution. Going to raise your right hand. And those are working trust lands. They're not like BLM or Forest Service where you can go camp for 10 days. But we also have to be good neighbors. You know, you got to understand, and you got to visit, you got to talk to people, and not put things on consent lists. And I'll do a great job of that. I've worked hard on state lands, got a lot of experience with that. And then the state loan investment piece, which I'd love to talk about, been working for decades on, and hopefully that question comes.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly, your turn.
Thank you. So the question was, how do we balance leasing with public opposition, especially when we're talking about adjacent private lands, is where that opposition comes in. It really depends on the project. Each project on its own merit, what it's going to do, what's going to accomplish, and what the returns are going to be. Now, I have some stipulations here. First, is the public opposition, is it really valid? Do they have evidence? Is there some serious harm that's going to come from this leasing? Well, then I may be a no vote if that's the case, if it's infringing on private property rights, even if they're just adjacent. But if it's something that's just kind of like blown rhetoric that blew up on social media and people are just ranting and raving and they're not even sure exactly what they're opposing, again, we come back to evaluating each project on its own. I have an issue, though. Any project that is dependent upon federal funds, because we found out that those can dry up overnight and then Wyoming is left holding the bag. So what I would like to see is that when we have any leasing opportunities, that this is an endeavor that can stand on its own 2 feet, that is not reliant on any type of federal funds. So when there is a change in the direction in Washington, that Wyoming's still standing tall.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Harshman, you'll go first.
Earlier this year, the state legislature passed a law establishing a new language and literacy program based on an approach called the science of reading. These new rules are currently out for public comment. If elected, you'll be tasked with the implementation of this new program. How do you plan to coordinate efforts to ensure the program is successful, and what else needs to be done to address Wyoming students' lagging reading test scores?
First of all, to correct that question, our reading test scores are not lagging. I think what people look at is the YTOP test, which is a bell curve, which separates all our kids. But if you go to any third grade classroom in this state, all the kids are reading. I've been doing book studies with senior boys for 40 years. I haven't found one that can't read. And we have politicians who don't understand standards-based testing, which is supposed to inform instruction. Don't get me started on that. That's another thing. I mean, it all needs, but when you look at our NAEP scores, you look at our ACT scores, you look at, our kids are doing really well. Now, kids are in different places, certainly. But as I go back to this thing, I think, as I got off on a tangent, I think I forgot the question. Implementation of the new law. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I voted for that bill. I passed one in 2019. I think reading I think back when my wife was trained, it was phonics. And then we started training teachers in a whole language thing. And we've realized that was a mistake, particularly for the K through 3 kids, and we've gone back to phonics. This bill doesn't do as much, probably. It's not as, I think the problem is the 4, 5, 6 grades, and we needed more time to implement it. I tried to amend it. As superintendent, I would do that with the rules. I wouldn't be in a rush, because when you rush stuff, you got to go back and do it a second time, and we want to get it right the first time.
Mr. Kelly, your turn.
This literacy law did not just appear out of thin air. This was brought by parents, this is brought by literacy organizations, and just the YTOP aside, our nation's report card, by 8th grade, 2 out of 3 of our students are not considered proficient in reading. These are facts. This is not talking on the system, because I really don't like when teachers take the brunt of that, all they have to handle, and then unfortunately this law, I think, went the wrong direction. I mentioned 30 more pages of rules to implement for everyone at the literacy level. I want literacy. I want the teachers to lead on this. We have the new rules. The new superintendent can look at those rules, and I could then, they'll be in effect by the time I take office, if I'm lucky or unlucky enough to win, depending on how you look at it. And I could find out from the districts what's working and what's not. One of the things I want to do as superintendent with all the rules is speak with the districts and say, how can I make your life easier? Because we want kids to do better at reading. We want them ready to read by 3rd grade because they're always behind the 8 ball after that. So the thing to do is what I've been saying all along, to back off from the top-down approach, to make the rules as effective and as flexible as possible so each district can do what they need to do, and then we can provide the support and the funds for dyslexia screeners and support for districts that need it, but not give them a new maze of regulations to have to traverse.
Mr. Auer, your turn.
Yeah, number one, I just want to be real clear. If I'm hired as your next state superintendent, I'm not going to rush the rulemaking process, whether it's an election year or not. Because as has been said, just like when the legislature got in a hurry with the recal bill, unintended negative consequences can happen. But specific to the question, I want to be real clear. I'm with George W. Bush Policy Center on this. These folks advocated for and trained me in this. I, therefore, will advocate for the adoption of structured literacy, evidence-based literacy instruction. I think that this shift, as the bill talks about, should be reinforced by professional development. For all those teachers, we should also have, alongside of that, real-time data to help teachers track and parents track and quickly identify readers who need help. And then ultimately, we need to have early intervention, because which would include an early intervention for a universal dyslexia screener, because when we provide cost-effective early interventions, we actually save money in the long run, and we also do right by our kids.
Thank you, candidates. For the next question, Mr. Kelly, you'll go first.
What would you do to improve educational outcomes for our Indigenous students?
I'm sorry if I start sounding like a one-trick pony here, but we've got some great ideas up here from the perspective of being an educator or somebody who runs a school system on how to collect data, how to do things, how to help kids directly. But this is not the job of the superintendent to be telling each district how to do this. So when we talk about the kids in Fremont County, the people of Fremont County should be leading on that. They should be providing the information. They know the kids personally. They're on a first-name basis. They've grown up with them. They know what works. They know what doesn't. So again, it's as simple as listening to the people of the community. I am somebody who teaches research methods at a university, so I understand how to process and read data. So to collect that information from them, the on-the-ground information, to collect the actual data and provide suggestions and support for them to move forward. But again, allow each local district that knows the kids, the parents who know their communities, to bring forth their concerns and let me know where I can help. And then on a district-by-district basis, perhaps we could then allocate resources and support as necessary. But I'm not going to tell you a one-size-fits-all policy for all districts while I'm sitting here. I guarantee you, I can come up with lots of ideas that I think would better run a school system, but that's not the job we're talking here.
Mr. Auer.
Yeah, again, experience matters when it comes to this. And I'm going to point to the fact that when I was serving in Governor Gordon's administration, I was tasked with tribal relations. I know firsthand how to work with tribal leaders. I understand and honor and respect the local context. I honor and respect the culture, and I also honor and respect the challenges related to delivering public education on the reservation. I also have experience working specifically with our school districts in Fremont County in respect of helping improve outcomes for students with disabilities. Again, that is a deep experience that I bring to this office. Oh, and then there's one other thing. When I was in that other state down south, that dreaded jurisdiction, Colorado, I worked with the reservations in Colorado too. Actually, that was a real benefit and would be a benefit to this office, because I understand the realities of working and supporting our friends on the reservation. I also understand the dynamics of the Federal Bureau of Indian Education, BIA, and other federal complexities. Listen, those kids are our kids too, and they deserve our full attention, and they deserve a state superintendent that loves and respects and cares about them just as much as any other kid.
Mr. Harshman.
Yeah, thank you. You know, and as I visited the 8 school districts in Fremont County, and you know, you think of the 2 bigger ones in Riverton and Lander and maybe Du Bois, but very small, targeted school districts really for those kids. And I think, first of all, the facilities, I think, are doing really well. I think the funding model is pretty good. I think the concern I have is really this silo piece that we put in. And Fremont County is a really interesting, you know, gem in our state, and the school choice options they have from district to district and the way they share resources, I think is pretty interesting. But I think for these kids, number one, you got to know their history, and we got to know the history of our state, and that's a part of that. But as we move forward, again, as said, they're our kids, and we're gonna fund their schools well. We're gonna hire the very best teachers. But I think the key is letting the locals control that and run those schools. That's the Wyoming way, and we'll do a great job moving forward.
Thank you, candidates. For this final question, Mr. Auer, you'll go first.
What changes, if any, would you make to Wyoming's statewide assessment system, and why?
I wouldn't change anything. Just kidding. I've been talking about that the whole time. Look, I think teachers and parents deserve real-time data to make real-time education decisions that are relevant to those kids' future and those the teachers' daily experience. To do that, though, we're going to need to have a real thoughtful, deep conversation about how are we going to reduce our standards. The burden of our current standard system is squishing out creativity and problem solving and entrepreneurial spirit that American educators have. You know, an assessment system should help education. It shouldn't interrupt it. Our assessment system is super expensive, it's time consuming, and it is overly burdensome on our system, and it's giving data that is not aligned with the future. It's aligned with antiquated ideals from distant past. We're long overdue. And frankly, America's waiting for Wyoming to show up on this issue. We haven't showed up on this issue yet. We need to. And because we're nimble in Wyoming, we're rooted in Western values, and we understand how to do public education right, we can show America how to move public education into the future, and the first step is going to be to reorganize our assessment system.
Mr. Harshman, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. And I think most of this came about really with the Bush administration, no child left behind. And I really call it no consultant left behind. And we've created the education industrial complex. And there's a few big players that are running the show. And I tell you, we went from the YCAS, and these are all political decisions. I remember I sat on this, put 4 years of my life into this. I remember Mississippi had 90% proficient or above, because it's where you set the cut scores. See, and in Wyoming, we had the YCAS, and then we went to the PAWS. And man, our scores went up. And I remember the consultant saying, you're going to have to raise the cut score because there's too many proficient and advanced. See, it's like the high jump bar. If kids clear 6 foot, then we raise it to 6'1". But conversely, if they don't clear 6 foot, we lower it. So it really doesn't give you the data on how our kids are doing, because we keep, the best way to measure change is don't change the measure. And now we're going to redo the cut scores again with a new consultant coming in this fall. So the teachers this year never even got the results of the tests that the kids, and you're all going to go home and take that 4th grade reading test, but it used to be about informing instruction. Now teachers can't even look at the test because you're teaching to the test. And that whole thing needs redone, brought back, and start over, because it's just gone out of control. And so we can fix it. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. I think what Chad meant when he said reduce standards, I don't think he's not saying lower standards. I know exactly what he's saying, and I concur with that. The idea is to refocus and reprioritize. What we should probably have is a much more objective and stable system rather than have a moving target for which the kids are shooting at. It causes great amounts of anxiety for the educators because they realize they're being tested, actually, not the kids. And then, of course, that filters down to the children. I don't understand why we couldn't simply test, can kids, are they proficient in reading? Are they proficient in math? Are they proficient in writing? And have all that testing done. You can tell within 2 hours if a child is able to do these things or not able to do these things. By minimizing and reprioritizing the standards to the basics of education, and then the leadership at the top at the same time can take a little stress off. Instead of me sitting up at the top saying, like, listen, look at these scores. I made these scores more since I've been in office. That's not how I would lead things. I'd be cheerleading the teachers if we had improvements. If not, I'd be looking to see where we could do it. But in sum, what we need is prioritized testing and an objective target that's not moving, so we can see and we have data that's consistent year after year, and we can see long-term trends, which we can't do when we do change the bar.
I said that it was the last question, but it looks like we have one more. I'm throwing you a curveball here. Mr. Harshman, you're going to go first on this one.
Is it the role of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to actively advocate for private education systems using taxpayer dollars?
I can probably answer that in one word. No. Maybe 2 words. No way. 3 words, absolutely no way. I'm not going to say hell no.
You got him to say.
So I think, now am I going to support kids? Absolutely. I mean, and we see kids all the time going from homeschool back into public school, back to homeschool, and those of you who are teachers, you know exactly that story. We're going to support kids that come to us from out of state that, we have 200 homeless kids in Casper. We have a homeless student coordinator. We have 300 kids in foster care. That's 500 kids. That's bigger than most of the school districts in Wyoming. And so we're going to support those kids, love them up, get them wherever they're at and move them forward. And because we all know, the number one predictor of student success, right, is the socioeconomic piece. But as public schools, we've gone way beyond that. We're going to take these kids and move them all forward because every kid has potential, right? And so I'm going to support all kids, but the job is superintendent of public instruction, and I'm not going to put wedges in between them. If parents choose that, good for them. But that's not the role of this elected office. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kelly.
Just to clarify, you asked a yes or no question of using public funds to promote private enterprises?
Yes.
No, at no level. Should the government be using taxpayer money to actively promote private industries? The money for public education should be going to the kids. Now, it's no secret that I support if we have effective and useful, and parents would like to have private providers, but no, the state should not be advertising for the private providers.
Mr. Auer.
No. But I'm not going to yield the balance of my time. I'm going to say this. You know, Wyoming has a strong tradition of strong traditional homeschool families. And you know what? I respect that. I think that we need to honor that. I think state superintendent needs to recognize that state superintendent has no role or business getting into the business of homeschooling. So I think there's that bright line. It should be honored. The reason I mention that is because, as we talked about earlier, we're sort of wrestling with that as a state. Are we going to blur that line? And if so, what are the consequences? Well, I'm going to tell you from the homeschool perspective, when we blur that line between public and non-public, we actually diminish what makes homeschooling and private schooling distinct. And we should, rather than try and invade that line and invade over there, because if I'm hired as state superintendent, if dollars do go across that line, I'm in their business, because the taxpayers deserve accountability and transparency and making sure that it's not being fraudulently spent. But if we honor that line, then we also honor that the distinctiveness of private and, well, all non-public options. Other than that, I don't, no, still no.
Thank you all for answering our questions. We're going to now move to 1-minute closing remarks. Mr. Kelly, you may go first.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. In some ways, it's kind of unfortunate that the superintendent is an elected partisan position, because as you see what's going on the state right now, depending who you talk to, I'm a hero or a villain, whatever circles you run in at this point. And that shouldn't be the case with any of the three of us. You have three competent individuals here who actually want to do the job. We don't have our eyes set on another office after this. What I'll be bringing to the table with this is the ability to work with and listen to anyone, and the ability to change my mind when I know I'm wrong about something. Hi, Rep, you know what it's like working with me. Good seeing you, Carly. So if you decide to choose me for the superintendent of public instruction, you'll have a level-headed, practical man on the slib at the head of the Department of Education who is not pushing a political agenda, but looking to use my principles and my experience to do what's best for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Auer.
Yeah, Wyoming has a lot to celebrate. I said this before, but leadership requires more than preserving the past. We need to, and I believe this is the question that's on the ballot when it comes to education. Are we going to embrace the future with optimism, with courage, with boldness, or are we going to double down on the Carter administration? We have an opportunity, in my view, Wyoming has an opportunity, as I said before, to thoughtfully embrace the future and really do right by our kids by giving them the knowledge and skills and experiences that they need in a rapidly changing geopolitical marketplace. If you're hiring me, you're not hiring me because of a city on my birth certificate, or if I'm able to advance talking points from Washington, D.C., or if I can score touchdowns. You're hiring me because I want to lead this state forward. I want to be a collaborative, thoughtful partner with you as we show America how to do public education.
Mr. Harshman.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity tonight, and thank you all for coming out on a Thursday night in the beautiful Gem City, and just really as a Wyoming kid, and you know, the first day I was ever in our state capitol was the day I was sworn in, and I love this state. Appreciate these two guys throwing their name in the hat. That's what it's all about. You should have choices. But I have spent a quarter of a century on education policy. I have balanced budgets, worked hard, grown our investments from $2 billion now to we're going to be at $16 billion to now just guaranteeing that Wyoming's fiscal stability is going to be huge for our kids and all of our people. And nobody has that experience that I have. And I do say that this is probably the most important job up for election this whole election cycle. I think Wyoming is at a crossroads, and we've got the charter school folks and the private, all this stuff. I'm public school Steve, and I'm going to work for you. So thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for providing the public with your opinions and your ideas on our public school system and the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Please join us live or virtually in Casper at Casper College on July 22nd for the Governor Forum and on July 23rd for the United States Congressional Race Forum. Remember that the forums are all being recorded and will be available on Wyoming League of Women Voters, Vote 411, Wyoming Public Media, and WyoFile's websites. Voters, please don't forget to look at vote411.org, the national online voter information system, where you can view your ballot and view federal, state, and local candidate information. On Thursday, July 22nd, at the Albany County Public Library at 7 p.m., the Laramie League is hosting the Albany County Sheriff and the Albany County Attorney candidate forums. The primary election is Tuesday, August 18th. Call your local county clerk's office to confirm that you are a registered voter. If you did not vote in the general election in 2024, you've been purged from the voting rolls and will need to re-register. After the 2024 election, 86,000 Wyoming voters were purged from the rolls. Call your clerk's office to confirm the proper identification and proof of residency documentation necessary to re-register or register. Early voting begins on July 21st at Wyoming's local election offices. And finally, thank you to the audience for joining the League of Women Voters of Wyoming, Wyoming Public Media, and WyoFile. Good night.